Right, so this is where we left the portrait in part 1. So now we'll continue. Just to show you the colours again I use. Just the 3 primaries, secondary colours, earth colour there, brown. For the shadow areas I'm using the dark green and dark red. The inset you see is actually of the finished portrait, so you can see how I developed it from just after the blocking to the finished portrait, so you can see how I layered it to get to that stage of the finished portrait as you see in the inset photo. Now I've had to speed this one up a little bit just to fit everything in because there's the background and also the clothes to do as well as finishing the hair, so there's a lot to squeeze in to 20 minutes. I didn't want to leave it any longer than 20 minutes, so to bear with me with the speed I will slow it down here and there so you can take a closer look again. Now I'm always measuring all the time just to make sure everything's in the right correct place, so that's important when you're doing freehand style or freehand method. It's constant checking all the time throughout the portrait. Now to get that rich feeling, what I've tended to do is use the Candy Ash white and then glaze over the top with the standard colours I use, which is Carbothello colours. Now I've put a list of colours in the description below and all the numbers that would help, so you don't have to buy a complete set, you can just buy the individual numbers, so that'll make it easy for you. So yeah, it's a good idea just to use the Candy Ash first and then layer the other colours on top, just glaze over. Now when you're mixing skin tone, what I tend to do is if I'm using red, I use a green to dull that red down. So if it's too much of a vibrant red, use a little bit of its complementary colour to actually dull it down or desaturate it. If it was more orange colour, like a tan skin, I would use blue. So it's basically just going through that procedure as you go along. For the shadow areas I'm using dark green and dark red, but if it's really deep shadow I tend to use brown or dark blue. With pupils I tend to put a bit of black in there with a purple, so I don't use black in the skin, but for the hair and eyebrows sometimes it's needed, and for the pupils and eyelashes as well. Now for those who are interested in supporting me with Patreon, I've actually done a 1.5 hour video of this, real-time video with real-time audio as well, so I talk step by step a section, so you see how I'm mixing colours for the skin and how I layer it as I do it real time. So this will be on my Patreon as soon as I've launched it. It won't be too long now, so just keep a lookout in the description below, because as soon as it's launched I'll give you the link to follow. If you're getting value from this video, why not subscribe? It's absolutely free, and then you're sure not to miss my future videos. With the air, it's basically getting them shapes correct first, so I'm just using black and then using white just to map out where everything goes to start with, just to make sure I've got everything feeling correct, and making sure the height is correct as well. Sometimes you don't give enough hair and it could throw the picture, so it's always best to check. And once you've got your basic shape, and then it's just glazing over the top, similar to what you're doing with the skin, but obviously using different colours. I'll use a lot of, the primary colours, the blue, red and yellow, to get the correct colour. If you've got colour, but this is very similar, you could use that first and then go over with the primaries, because the primaries just make it that little bit more subtle. Right, to create a bit of space on this video, I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit now, just to show what I've done. Rather than cut it out, I've just speeded it up. It's surprising when you get the background in how it's sort of, you can see things that's not correct, and I noticed that the side of the face wasn't correct, so I've actually widened a little bit. But don't forget that that's an inset photograph of my finished portrait. Is seeing it full on, where the actual one I'm drawing is in perspective because it's on the easel, so it will look slightly different. But at this point I found that side of the cheek wasn't wide enough, so I had to move it. So it's easy enough to move, really. There's no sweat. It's just a case of just using the red and green again to get the shadow, and just going over the similar procedure, not pressing on too hard, just feeling your way, steady but sure. Now what I'm using to go underneath these vibrant areas of the highlights on the forehead is the Caran d'Ache rich colours. Now like I've said, I've actually put a list in the description below, so please check that out. It shows you all the colours I use for the rich areas, and also there's a list of the Carbothellos and the Contia Paris ones I use, individual numbers, so that will help out there. Now if you find that you've dulled an area too much, so say if you're using red, using green to actually desaturate it, and you've gone too far, just add a little bit of lemon yellow, because that brings it back up to vibrancy again, so you're sort of going from one to the other. Now with the clothes, what I tended to do was I found a couple of colours that combined together made a similar colour to what the actual shade of top it was, And then for the subtleties, because it's surprising, there's all different purples, reds, greens, oranges in the shadows, which you can achieve then with the actual complementary colours and secondary colours. So you'll find that you just get it basically in and then go over again with the primaries and secondaries, similar to what everything else I do. But what you're tending to do with this is not to fill that too much, because the texture of this top is actually cheesecloth, so it's got like a really sort of canvassy texture to it. So I wanted to keep it gritty, so you could actually feel that when you see the actual finished drawing. So I tended to rub a lot, so not to put too much pigment on, just keep rubbing it until it mixes well, and then that created that sort of texture I was looking for. What I tend to do as well, I like to get the real dark shadows in first, and then that gives me a gauge then to where to go with the other tones. Now I work on the 9 value system, where there's 4 lights, 4 darks and 1 mid-tone. So the way to see values is to squint the eyes, and the way to see colours is to open the eyes. So you're switching from one to the other. So just squint the eyes, try and work out the value of it, and simplify it, and then get your darks in first and then work from there. And if you can get your highlights in, then your darks, and then go in between. Right, it seems like we're running out of time again with this video. It's amazing how very difficult it is to get the whole footage into just 20 minutes, and it's gone over as it is. But I'm speeding it up now just to give you an idea of what's going on. But basically what I'm doing is getting a colour in very similar, trying to rub to get the texture, but then glazing over then with red, blue and yellow, just to get that final feel to it. Basically that's all it is. Similar procedure what you do with the skin, it's just what he's saying with the actual clothes, but you're just feeling it differently. But the thing is, you might be drawing fabric, but underneath that fabric there's actually his energy flowing through, so there's still the energy of Sean Connery coming through these clothes. So you have to open up and connect to the whole portrait. So you're connecting not just to the fabric, but you're connecting to his soul. So you let that feeling come through the material, and then you'll be able to catch it then if you do that. If you like this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. I really appreciate that. It would help to support the channel and help to make it grow. So if you would, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. If you're wanting a more in-depth look at how I do clothes, there's quite a few videos now in my channel if you want to check those out, and there's a lot more slowed down footage as well, because I'm just focusing just on the clothes in that video, where this video I've had to finish the face, do the hair, the background and the clothes, so I've not had the sort of time to actually explain as much as I would like to. So please check those out. They're all in my channel. Now what I'm doing now is just putting the final touches everywhere. So what I tend to look for when I'm putting the final touches is to look if there's any areas that is too sharp that I need to soften up, because if there's any areas that are sharp edges, the eye will be drawn there. Now you need the eyes really to be focused on the eyes, so the sharpness around the eyes, but everything else should be slightly blurred or out of focus. So that's what I tend to do anyway. Now I use this amazing tool which is called a colour shaper. Now I've listed all these tools in the description below, so check those out, but that's a real great tool just to soften up certain areas. You can use a cotton bud or your finger, but for fine details, you know, using that sort of burnishing tool which is the colour shaper is really great. Now this stage I really open up and look at the whole picture and sense how it feels, and when you do that there'll be parts of it that'll stand out and feels awkward, so then it gives you a feeling that that needs some attention. So that's what I tend to do, is open up and I feel which areas need doing. What you don't want to do when you do these final touches is to really have tunnel vision and trying to put too much detail in, because if you do that it'll throw all that energy work you've done previously. So because if you just work too much on detail, all you'll feel is detail. You'll see tension or sharp lines. It's got to be subtle and it's got to be connected to this energy for it to feel real. That's what my opinion is anyway, is to really connect at this point to get that feeling right. Here's the portrait at the correct angle as I saw it. Thank you for watching the video right through to the end. If you found value in it and you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Appreciate it, would help the channel. Leave a comment and a message in the comments below. Let me know what sort of videos you want me to produce. I've actually left a couple of links here for you to click on, and to subscribe, click on the circle here. It's absolutely free, and then you're sure not to miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much, take care and be well.